Welcome to Hatch's Digital Transformation podcast series, where today and in episodes to come, we'll talk through how strategic integration of digital technologies across all aspects of an organization is revolutionizing operations, client interactions, and business models. We'll investigate and share how the evolved digital landscape in industry is fostering efficiencies, innovation, and adaptability by leveraging data, analytics, cloud computing, and emerging technologies. Our goal with this podcast series is to grow together and ensure a sustainable future through digital transformation. I'm your host, Kelly Levesque. I'm a digitalization specialist at Hatch and hold a mechanical engineering degree with over 15 years of experience. In this podcast, we plan to explore how breaking down data silos in operations is increasing throughput, optimizing logistics, and improving performance. I'm pleased to introduce Sylvia Wong. Sylvia is a distinguished engineer with a remarkable track record spanning over 25 years in the fields of mining, bulk materials handling, and container terminals. Currently, a director for integration ports and terminals, Sylvia brings a wealth of expertise and hands-on experience as an automation specialist. To complement her technical acumen, she has also spearheaded strategic development initiatives and optimized business processes in support of production, logistics, and maintenance. Thanks for joining me, Sylvia.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm really glad to be here.
Perfect. So let's jump right in. The shipping industry has been and is currently being impacted by many external pressures. If we think about labor disruptions during the pandemic, climate change, safety, security in the Middle East, how are these pressures impacting the shipping industry?
Well, just like every other industry, container terminals have really been challenged to do more with less and to operate more sustainably and to be able to react to ongoing changes in the world. And many container terminals right now have very aggressive emissions reduction targets that they're trying to achieve in the next few years. And it's really forcing our clients to be more agile and nimble. I'm sure we all saw during the pandemic, the vessels backed up at the ports. When the world started ordering everything online, cargo volumes went up and there were staff shortages at these terminals and also downstream at the distribution centers for people to unload the containers. And so as a result, the container terminals were incredibly busy during that time period. My clients are container terminal operators, and their main focus is to take import containers off of vessels, store them very briefly until they're ready to be loaded onto rail cars or picked up by trucks, and for exports to load the containers onto the vessels as quickly as possible so that the vessels can depart on time. So as you can imagine, in many cases, the specific container matters. If you have a shipment coming, you as the beneficial cargo owner want your particular container and its contents, not someone else's. So getting the right box delivered to the right recipient in an optimal manner is really critical. The terminals operate within an ecosystem, and there are many stakeholders in the process, including the port authority, who is often the landlord while the container terminal is the tenant. This is often, but not always. The shipping lines themselves, railroads, the trucking community, labor force, customs officials, and of course, the owners of the cargo. So good information flows in order that all parties can plan and execute their part in an optimal way is really important. And as technology becomes more sophisticated, operators are looking for ways to work more safely, to optimize and drive to lower emissions. We want to move away from diesel equipment and to operate the equipment we have more efficiently and, of course, to move people out of harm's way. Automation has been an interesting development in that it is an enabler of those objectives. So automation can be thought of in varying degrees. So we might have just process automation, for example, where we have things like OCR technology, RFID technology being used to identify trucks and containers so that clerks only need to handle exceptions. Or we can have very sophisticated automated equipment where the container handling equipment itself is automated, and we have even in the US here, automated stacking cranes and automated guided vehicles, automated straddle carriers moving the containers. And as we automate, we also have more data available, and that data can be used to help make all processes, even the manual ones, more efficient. So, for example, with better information, trucking companies can now make better decisions and optimize their appointment bookings.
Thank you for that explanation, Sylvia. I mean, I just have a picture in my mind, where a vessel shows up and these containers are being moved into a storage yard and, but you have to make sure that, you know, one of those containers doesn't end up in the bottom of the stack if it's basically next to be moved to a truck. So I see all of these little pieces moving around, and it really sounds like quite the brain twister, with then so many external pressures to balance. It really sounds like this is an industry that's trying to adapt to these external pressures. So with increased automation, how are clients going about leveraging the available data?
That's exactly right. So the picture you painted, Kelly, is really what's happening. It's making sure that that next container that's required isn't at the bottom of the pile. Um, and our clients are really using data to drive insights to optimize the operational processes. And they're also using the data to improve how their automation systems communicate and work together. We've been working with our clients and using the available data that's being generated by their automation and their manual systems to better understand how to optimize the operation, to reduce congestion, for example, to improve equipment usage, getting less fuel burned, for example, per move. Ultimately, we want to be able to move more cargo more quickly with fewer errors and to get people their Amazon packages sooner. One thing with automation is that a lot of data is generated, but it's often not used. It's often not used in a very fulsome way. And it's not enough just to have the data. It actually needs to be used. So if you think about it, once we've automated, we now lose that human feedback we used to get on how the equipment is working, whether or not there's something wrong in the pavement, there's a pothole. So we need to derive those insights from data that we had previously gotten from human feedback. And with the data, we can also see how the automation systems themselves are performing, how they're interacting, and what can be done to improve their operation. So if we change how the software behaves, perhaps we can alleviate some of the congestion in some part of the yard or improve the transfers between one type of equipment to another. So working with our clients, we've provided this feedback to their software vendors, and we've seen improvements being made to the automation systems that help to control the equipment. These insights also allow us to get some practical lessons learned to be incorporated into the design requirements when the client embarks on the next upgrade or expansion project.
Thank you for that explanation. I mean, with the increased automation, it really sounds as though there's so many opportunities to really optimize, how our clients are actually moving through all of the logistics, and um, so many more insights that are actually available when you pull all of that information together. Um, so, how does this data actually go about informing maintenance?
Oh, this has been a huge benefit for asset reliability and maintenance. Um, I'll I'll give an actual example that one of my clients presented at a conference himself. Um, what happened was we had automated some cranes and were achieving a reliable level of productivity. And one day we received a notice from the production group that productivity was lower on these cranes, and they couldn't pinpoint why. There wasn't any breakdown, nothing was stopping, but they just weren't moving as much cargo each hour. And we had recently implemented an update to one of the control systems. So the systems analyst suspected it had to do with the software and was contemplating a rollback of the software. Now, for people who are familiar with rollbacks, they're kind of dreaded because they could go badly, and it also takes time out of production in order to achieve this. And I actually happened to be on a business trip at this time. I was in Finland and very quickly was able to log into the client's systems just to take a look at the data that was being produced by the crane, by the various systems related to the crane, including the planning systems, the control system, as well as the system controlling the automated straddle carriers that were feeding those cranes, and also the remote control desk. So we were able to pull together variables from all the different components in order to paint a picture to see where the problem was. Previously, without an integrated data platform, all the data would be left in silos, and it would just be horrendously difficult to figure out which system was the culprit. And I was able to very quickly identify something that looked odd to me and sent the visual image to the VP of maintenance. And he very quickly identified what the offending part was. It happened to be this part called a flipper that guides the crane down to pick up the container. And he had already sent the mechanics out to check it previously, but they hadn't noticed that it was slightly bent. When they went back out with a straight edge and measured it, they realized, sure enough, it was bent. They replaced the part, and within the shift, productivity was stored. And my clients actually said, without this data, they would have been trying to figure out what was going on for a very long time, weeks, months. But, it's really changed the way they look at it. And of course, now we have an algorithm that detects this type of situation and notifies maintenance whenever we see it in the data. And so we can do all sorts of things with data, including building AI models to get on top of equipment degradation.
There you have it, folks. By recognizing that production and maintenance are inherently intertwined, we uncover the potential for transformative insights. By harnessing the data from each silo and providing context across domains, we unlock a wealth of previously obscured insights. If we listen, the data will tell us where to look. This integration of data further empowers us to enhance logistics, optimize resource allocation and usage, and ultimately drive efficiency and profitability. Now, my favorite part of the episode, the rapid fire segment. I'll ask you 3 questions and challenge you to answer these questions in 10 words or less. Sylvia, are you ready?
I guess so.
So name one common misconception about digital transformation.
Okay, so you can actually do a proof of concept and get actionable insights in a very short time. Like we got insights in 4 weeks or less. So you don't need to do a large, drawn-out project in order to start getting data.
That's a good one. We often see these digital transformation projects to be massive, but you can really usually get some low-hanging fruit for sure. What is the most important lesson that you've learned in your current role?
Oh, for sure. It is that data won't provide you with the insights if you don't have an understanding of the operation. So it's really a collaborative effort between the subject matter experts and the data team. Data is not there for data's sake. Uncontextualized data itself can be misleading.
Oh, that context is so important. I completely agree. From your personal perspective, what industry, topic, or activity is ripe for the greatest impact by embarking on a digital transformation journey?
I feel that a lot of conventional terminals are not collecting enough data, and they're not benefiting from data, and they're at the risk of falling behind, losing out when they're relying on tribal knowledge and people retire.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation, Sylvia.
Thanks so much for having me, Kelly. This was fun.
I'm your host, Kelly Levesque. Please join us in the next episode of this podcast series as we continue to investigate and share in the evolution of digital transformation. Until next time, let's keep innovating for a positive future.